Today we are going to be reading Chapter 7 of Becoming Naomi Leon by Pam Munoz Ryan. So, let's take a deep breath in. And let's exhale. And let us begin. Chapter 7, An Unkindness of Ravens. Skylar licked her fingers clean and took another piece of Wednesday chicken bake. "Graham," she said, "one of the things I have missed, besides my children, of course, is your home cooking." Graham sat up straighter and smiled. "Oh, I just remembered. I have a little surprise, and since tomorrow is the teachers' conferences and we're all together, I'd like to show it off." Skylar went to the bedroom and came back with a flurry of shopping bags. The minute Owen saw them, he stopped eating and his eyes brightened. Skylar reached into the bags and pulled out a baby blue scoop neck top. "Naomi, this is for you, and look," she said, reaching into the other bag. "I found one in my size that matches it exactly. Mother-daughter tops. We can wear them tomorrow for your conference, and..." She stuck her hand in the bag. "I found raven brown hair color. I thought our hair should match, too. I'm going to color mine tonight. Isn't that wonderful?" "I thought ravens were black," said Owen. "The idea is the hair color is black-brown, Owen," said Skylar. "We girls understand that, right, Naomi?" I pretended I knew and I nodded. Owen put his head back down over his chicken. Over the past week, Skylar had bought me hair clips for the bottom of my braid, a pair of fuzzy tiger-striped slippers, a new backpack, a glittery keychain, press-on earrings, and press-on nails. Though Graham said I couldn't wear those to school. She bought Clive some black t-shirts, a baseball cap, and a ring with an amber stone. Even though Graham insisted there was no need, Skylar bought her a round picnic table with 4 chairs for the White Rock patio. She announced that all the gifts were really from Clive because he gave her the money. And wasn't that sweet? But nothing for Owen. Before leaving the table, I nudged Owen's shoulder and asked if he wanted to play checkers. He loved checkers, and usually I don't offer because I hadn't won a game against him in years. But tonight, he just shook his head. So I took the top to my room and laid it out on the end of my bed. Tomorrow my conference would be before Owen's and right after Blanca's. We'd arranged to introduce our mothers between the 2 meetings. I was determined that everything should go as planned. I'd be extra quiet in the morning so Skylar could sleep a little longer. She did not like to wake up early. I'd wear the clothes she bought me, and I'd let her braid my hair the way she liked. Hopefully everything would be perfect, like a jigsaw puzzle where every piece was in place. The next morning before breakfast, still laying in our beds, Owen and I whispered our plan for showing Skylar around Buena Vista. "Owen, after my conference, you take Skylar to your class to meet your teacher." "Yeah, then I'll show her my papers that are on the bulletin board, the A papers, and my science potato. It's growing real good," said Owen. "Then I'll meet you in the art room," I said. "Then we'll take her to the library and I'll show her my reading journals, and she can meet Mr. Marble." We stayed in bed as long as possible. When Skylar woke up, she didn't look rested. Her eyes were all red, and while she braided my hair, her hands quivered so much she kept having to start over. I smelled something like sour milk on her nightgown. "Naomi, sit still. I want you to look pretty for today." She gave my hair a tight jerk. What was making her act so mean? I sat as still as a rock, hoping her mood would change. "Now remember, when we're at school this afternoon, just call me Skylar Jones. You know how I feel about my name." Owen and I knew the reasons. Number 1, we weren't allowed to call her Terry Lynn because it wasn't pretty. 2, we weren't allowed to call her Mom because it made her feel old. 3, we weren't allowed to use the last name Leon because that part of her life was said and done. And 4, Skyla Jones had a nice ring to it. Where's the comb, Naomi? Are you sitting on it? Move so I can find it. Owen, pick up all my shoes and put them away. This place is a mess. And after you do that, bring me a diet soda. Just then, Graham walked in. She began picking up Skyla's magazines that were strewn on the floor and the trash from her beauty makeover last night. I was still getting used to the raven brown, which made her skin look as white as mashed potatoes. I'll be sewing all day at Fabiola's, said Graham, but after your meetings, you might suggest stopping at you-know-where on your way home. Owen grinned and nodded. Where's that? Skyla asked. Our favorite place, said Owen. We'll show you. We best leave for the bus stop in a few minutes, so hurry out of your pajamas, said Graham. I dressed in my baby blue top and jeans. When Skyla saw me, she squealed, Naomi, we are going to look just like twins. I blew out a breath. Everything seemed to be getting back on track. By the time I gathered my homework and books and stuffed my lunch sack into the backpack, Owen appeared wearing navy dress slacks that Graham had made him 2 years ago. They still fit everywhere but the length, riding high waters above his ankles. He also sported the matching polyester vest, a long-sleeve white shirt, and a tie. My heart skipped a little beat when I saw him. He had increased his tape usage considerably. Graham managed a smile and said, Owen, you look very handsome this morning. Your teacher will probably give you extra credit for showing up looking so dapper. Right, Skyla? Skyla looked at Owen up and down. Well, yes, I suppose so, but Owen, don't you think you took off all that ridiculous tape, it would make a better impression? Owen shrugged his shoulders and gave her a lopsided smile. Well, I'll see you later, said Skyla. I'll be there at 2:15 on the button to meet your little friend and her mother, Naomi. Then we'll go to your conferences. Graham herded us out the door. I knew Owen's going to a wedding outfit was going to make for some hoots and whistles on the bus. I was right, and it didn't stop there. As soon as we got to school, Dustin Mulholland, one of the boys who taunted me about my name, walked up to us. Hey, outlaws. And one looks like Mexican bandito. Steal anything lately? I wanted to tell him to leave us alone, but as much as I tried, I couldn't say a word. What's this, outlaw boy? Oh, you robbed the office door? He yanked the tape from Owen's chest, strip by strip. When the piece was peeled off, Owen dropped to the ground and started to shake and spit. A straggle of kids crowded around. Dustin panicked and frantically searched to see if a teacher was watching. He picked up the tossed about pieces of tape and pressed them back on Owen's shirt. Hey kid, I didn't mean it. Here's your tape, kid. Get up before the teacher sees you laying there. Get up, kid. With the tape back in place, Owen opened his eyes, got up, brushed himself off, and walked away, his suit dirty from the playground. Retard, yelled Dustin. Everyone laughed. I just stood there watching the whole thing like it was a movie. Why couldn't I speak up and defend Owen or myself? Finally, I ran to catch up with Owen, the flush of embarrassment still on my cheeks. Owen smiled so big that all his teeth showed, as if the joke was on everybody else. Didn't he know the joke was on him? He took one look at my strained face and said, I fell down on purpose, Naomi. Why would you do that? It just makes everything worse. They didn't mean it, he said. They were just teasing. Why did he always have to look on the good side of everything? Owen, don't you care what people think about you? I said. Kids will like you better if you don't, do crazy things. Skylar would probably like you better too if you just tried to please her. I immediately wanted to take back my words. But before I could say anything, Owen spied a penny on the walkway and ran to it.
Hey, Naomi, find a penny, pick it up, and all the day you'll have good luck.
He held up the penny.
I found a penny and our mother came back and she's going to our conferences today.
Owen looked at me with a big cow eyes and said,
I think that's going to be very lucky.
I melted inside, and for an instant, I felt lucky for something, but I didn't know what. I messed up his hair. Yeah, Owen, that's lucky, all right. He pulled one of his tape strips off his chest and pressed it to my backpack. I knew full well that he'd run after me if I didn't accept it. That afternoon, Owen and I stood on the steps of Buena Vista Elementary with Blanca and her mother during the 15-minute break between our conferences. Mrs. Paloma wore her red Value City smock and kept glancing at her watch. My mom has to go back to work pretty soon, said Blanca. She has a meeting. Skylar will be here, I said, searching for the street for the red Mustang.
Yeah, she's coming for sure,
said Owen. He had already wandered down the steps several times to look up and down the block. Parents and students who had the next appointments hurried into the building, and those who were finished walked towards their cars. Naomi, I would really like to meet your mother, said Mrs. Paloma, but doesn't your conference start at 2:30? It's that now. She'll probably be here any second, I said, my stomach sinking. The comings and goings settled down. I heard the school buzzer inside the building, which meant the next session was starting. Owen kicked a little rock around in a circle. I kept my eyes on the street. Blanca reached over and took my hand. I couldn't look at her. She said she was coming. Mrs. Paloma said, I'm sorry, Naomi. We'll have to do this another time. Come on, Blanca. I'll drop you off at the Y. Blanca followed her mother. Halfway down the steps, she turned around, put her hand out, and shrugged, as if to ask what happened. It was almost 5 o'clock when Ms. Morimoto found us still waiting. She took us inside the school office, where Ms. Dominguez called Graham.
There's no answer at the home number,
she said to Ms. Morimoto. Then she looked at Owen and me and smiled.
I don't think your grandmother has ever been late.
Our Graham isn't coming today. Our mother was coming, I said. My voice seemed to be shrinking.
Your mother? But I thought, said Ms. Dominguez.
She gave Ms. Morimoto one of those raised eyebrow looks.
Miss Outlaw called this morning, said Ms. Morimoto. She told me her children's mother was in town and coming to the conference and bringing them home afterwards. Our mother came back for a visit, said Owen.
But the usual luster was gone from his voice and his face, and he looked pitiful, just standing there rumpled in his vest and his tie.
Ah, said Miss Dominguez. Well, it's pretty late and it's getting dark.
You can call Fabiola and Bernardo, I said, remembering that Graham was working on the bridesmaids' dresses. The neighbors, Ms. Morimoto explained to Ms. Dominguez. They're the emergency contacts. I would call them myself, but... Ms. Morimoto looked down at my hand, clutching tight to hers. Ms. Dominguez nodded. She called, and we went back to the steps to wait. 10 minutes later, Graham pulled up in the Toyota. I let go of Ms. Morimoto's hand and started toward the car. As soon as I reached the curb, I realized I had left my backpack in the hall near the school office. I hurried back to get it, and as I hoisted it on my back, I heard Ms. Morimoto's voice from inside. Called yesterday to give me some history on the mother. She's been in and out of rehab hospitals and halfway houses for years, severe alcohol abuse,
and irrational behaviors to go along with it. Is she on medication? Asked Miss Dominguez. Apparently, she hasn't been drinking lately and is taking meds for her moods, said Ms. Morimoto. But you know the story. Once they start up again, it's a vicious circle. I just hate to think of that woman getting close to Naomi and Owen. Those children were standing in the wrong line when they passed out mothers. What happened to the father? There's no contact. He and the mother are divorced. Mrs. Outlaw said he wanted the children at one time, but the mother wouldn't allow it. He lives in Mexico. I hurried away. Rehab hospitals and halfway houses. What was a halfway house anyway? Medicine for moods? Was Skyla sick? And my father, he wanted us? At first, hearing about him was like a pinch, reminding me of someone else who hadn't come to get me. But the part about him wanting us, that was like a fond piece of candy when you didn't even know you were craving something sweet. Why hadn't Graham told us? And that is the end of chapter 7. I will see you next chapter.